Hey, how's it going everybody? Remy Sovereign here. It's been slightly over 2 years since I posted my first YouTube video to YouTube, and I thought I would do a review video about all the videos, content, and experiences that I've either put out or have gone through, dating back to my initial lower back pain story and injury that occurred at the end of 2013, which caused me to go into severe depression, and I went into a really dark time in my life where a lot of things that I loved and enjoyed were taken away from me, such as playing hockey, weightlifting, and just not being able to do normal daily tasks like sitting. And now it's June 2017, and I've since made a recovery, and I've got back to those things that I love, such as playing hockey, weightlifting, and just doing those normal or daily tasks that I enjoy the most. And so what I've titled this video is From a Herniated Disc to a 375-pound Deadlift, The Journey Thus Far. So going back to May 20th, 2013 and July 26th, 2013, these are two photos that I had found and that I had previously posted back in the day. So the first photo on the left is a photo that I had posted to Facebook when I was 19 years old. And as you can see in the photo, I look pretty solid. I'm rocking a six-pack, and at this time I was in really good shape in my life as I was working out consistently and constantly. And the photo on the right is just an indication of where my strength was at. And this was a photo that I had posted on Instagram on July 26th, and it's me doing a 90-pound chin-up for 5 repetitions. So that was just an indication of my strength, and at this time I honestly feel that this was the most fittest and strongest point in my life when I was 19, 20 years old. However, all this came to an end in the period between October 2013 and November 2013 when I had suffered my lower back injury and had sciatic pain and was experiencing sciatic pain. And this injury was caused by a combination of poor exercise technique, hockey, poor recovery, and much more. Now, the photo on the left and the photo in the middle are just photos that were taken recently, but just to kind of give you an example of where I was at the time in terms of my mindset with regards to exercise and training. So I threw my back out initially doing a 395-pound deadlift. Now at the time I can't even imagine what my technique was like, but I can only imagine it being very brutal because at the time I didn't realize how much there was to deadlifting, how much technique was involved, and I thought I knew it all, but I didn't, and I ended up throwing my back out on that lift, just doing a very poor deadlift, especially a heavy deadlift with 395 pounds. However, with that being said though, while the deadlift was nail in the coffin, there were a number of things that contributed to my lower back injury over time, such as playing hockey sometimes 2 to 3 times per day, not recovering properly, not engaging in proper recovery, but also just doing activities and exercises that involved me consistently bending my spine, especially in a weighted position, whether that's rounding my back during a sit-up and using weight, some sort of weighted sit-up or an ab crunch machine, or just engaging in poor sitting postures or poor stretching postures. All these factors kind of contributed to my lower back issue over time, and I didn't realize how a spinal disc injury can occur. And so it's all these factors combined that kind of led to my injury, and that ended up leading to January 6, 2014, when I had my MRI and I was diagnosed with a disc protrusion, which was impinging on the S1 nerve root. So as you can see in the photo, the red arrow there is pointing to the disc protrusion. So we have an asymmetrical kind of disc protrusion here, and I had a posterior lateral disc protrusion, and it was occurring on the right side, impinging on that S1 nerve root. And the yellow arrow here is just kind of pointing to where the nerve roots are located, and that kind of part of the disc is kind of protruding and hitting it, and that's what was causing my severe lower back pain, specifically sciatica. And moving on to October 2013, September 2014, I went through months of failed treatment, improper diagnosis, pain, and depression. So I'd seen multiple chiropractors, physical therapists, doctors, and they all had a different opinion about my injury, even though the MRI showed a disc protrusion. One doctor rehabilitation specialist suggested that I had a muscular injury. Physical therapist I was seeing suggested SI joint problems, and no one kind of really took into consideration, or not so much consideration, but no one really kind of just looked at the MRI and saw that I had a disc protrusion or kind of confirmed it. So I was left with months of failed treatment, pain, I was in depression, and for that first 6 to 7 month period from October 2013 all the way to about April 2014, my recovery was absolutely horrible. I did not get better. Rather, I actually believe I got worse. And it wasn't until after April 2014 when I started to get better. And that's when I started doing my own research, my own recovery, and I was out of school for the summer at the time. So I had the time to kind of develop my own rehab and recovery plan and do that research. So also during this time, I finished my 3rd year of school. That was at the end of April of 2014. So I finished on the Dean's Honor Roll. So it was a very tough semester during that year, just because I was sitting in class in significant pain and popping painkillers while writing exams, while just listening to lectures. So it was not an easy time during that period, but I still was able to finish with honor roll that semester. And during April 2014, I also started working and interning with the Windsor Spitfires and Drive Performance. So this is how I was introduced to strength and conditioning at the time, and this is when I first started training professional hockey athletes and junior hockey athletes, and this is how I got introduced kind of into the field. And so at the time, my former trainer when I played hockey was the strength and conditioning coach and athletic therapist, and his name was Joey Garland, and he worked for the Windsor Spitfires. And so he ran a business in the summer called Drive Performance, which was just a high performance kind of strength and conditioning training kind of business that he ran through the Windsor Spitfires, where he trained local professional hockey athletes and junior hockey athletes that were located here in Windsor. And so during that summer, he was looking for somebody. And so he had emailed the University of Windsor, and the University of Windsor put out an email saying that Joey was looking for somebody. And so Joey, being my former trainer for 2 years when I played hockey, I'd emailed him and just kind of indicated my interest. And so he ended up taking me on as his intern, and I interned under him and worked under him for that summer. And that's where I kind of began my experience training professional hockey athletes and junior hockey athletes, and just started to learn about that field of strength and conditioning. So moving on to September 2014 to April 2015, I finished my 4th year of school. I achieved Dean's Honor Roll for 6 out of my 8 semesters during school. So technically I almost finished with 7 out of 8, just one semester I didn't have a full course workload, which prevented me from getting onto that honor rolls list the one semester, even though I still had the grade average to get there. The only semester that I didn't make it was my first semester of university, just because I wasn't experienced. I didn't have the expectations of what it kind of took to be a good student, and I kind of woke up after the first semester and I kind of learned my lesson, which I had a 70 average, which isn't bad my first semester. But after that, I kind of woke up and I kind of realized what it took to kind of be a good student, and I started putting in the work and effort after that. And so technically you could argue 7 out of 8 semesters I made honor roll, but technically I was only recognized for 6. And also during this time I had significant improvements in lower back pain. So I was making significant progress in my lower back issue and my lower back pain. I was able to sit in classes for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Still had some slight issues for the 3-hour classes. When it was pushed out that long, I would start to get some pain after being seated for that long, but I was able to manage it, and I was able to get through it, and slowly I was making progress and continued progress over time. So that led me to May 8th, 2015, which is when I made my first YouTube video, which was my story of lower back pain and top 5 recommendations. And this is where I kind of shared my whole story about what I went through. Now, I didn't document things from the initial injury, and it wasn't until about May 8th when I started kind of making videos. And this was the first video where I shared kind of my whole story. And at this point in time, I'd actually made significant progress, and I was close to a recovery, a near full recovery, you could say, at this point. But I was still dealing with some issues, and I kind of documented whatever was kind of left in my recovery from here on out. And so I started making, and so after this, so in May to September 2015, I worked again with the Windsor Spitfires and Drive Performance. So I came back and worked the following year again with them. So from May to September, just because I wanted to kind of gain that experience. I wanted to gain more experience, gain more knowledge in the field of strength and conditioning. And I really liked working with Joey there at the time, as he was a real good coach and he was a really good therapist as well. So there was a lot to learn from him. But at the same time, I just wanted to improve my coaching skills, coaching athletes, and just kind of learn more about the field of strength and conditioning, and just kind of improve my skill set. Because with school, there wasn't anything really practical that we were learning or practical that we were doing. And this is kind of where all my practical experience came in. So I kind of was working part-time during the summer / volunteering and helping them. And this is kind of where I further gained more knowledge and experience in the field. And then on June 19th, 2015 was a graduation day. So this is when I officially graduated with a Bachelor of Human Kinetics with an honors in movement science with distinction. So this was a big accomplishment for me just because I graduated with my Bachelor of Human Kinetics, and also it was a big accomplishment to graduate with distinction. So for those of you guys that don't know what distinction is, just you're recognized for having an 80 average or higher throughout your whole university career. And so I was very, happy with this. I was very happy with the way things went during my university career. And I also kind of graduated with a minor in psychology, which is another thing too. And then moving on, so I started making separate videos just about my lower back pain and lower back issues that I experienced over the years. And so one of my first videos was why do I spend most of my days on the floor, which was July 5th, 2015. So this was just one of my positions that I'd spent most of my days in that helped me with my recovery, just because it was one of the only positions that provided me relief and allowed me to be in a position where I wasn't causing any more damage or further damage, and allowed my body to kind of make the necessary physiological recovery processes that needed to be made. Because I couldn't sit. Sitting was the worst thing for me, and standing was fine, but I mean, you can only stand for so long. You're still stressing a lot of joints by standing, so standing is not the best either. But laying in this position is what I found the most helpful, and I still often lay on my stomach like this all the time as much as I can, just to kind of decompress my spine and provide relief to my lower back instead of stretching it, or instead of stressing it all the time from sitting, because that'll take away from performance in the gym or playing hockey or whatnot. And I'm always kind of trying to prevent any injuries or future injuries that may occur specifically to myself, because I know I don't have a great lower back and I've already had a previous significant injury. And so moving on, I made the video about what medications that I make and find helpful on July 21st. Just kind of made this video, talked about the painkillers, anti-inflammatories, and various kind of nerve relaxers that I took for my lower back and what I found helpful. So just to kind of sum things up, I typically only took anti-inflammatories or painkillers when I needed, whether that was sitting in class trying to get through a 2-3 hour class or an exam, or if I couldn't sleep at night. There was oftentimes I had significant muscle spasms that I needed to take a painkiller, anti-inflammatory, in order to sleep. And then I made some update videos, lower back pain update videos along the way. And so I was kind of documenting my kind of progress towards the end of my recovery year. And so I made an update video here on July 29th. I made a few other update videos as well, just kind of explaining where I was at in terms of my progress and where my back was at. Then I made another video just about talking about how to stay positive through an injury and my experience kind of dealing with depression during the time of my lower back injury, because at the time I was really depressed. I was, a lot of the things that I enjoyed the most, like weightlifting, playing hockey, I wasn't able to do. Wasn't able to go out and watch a movie with friends or even go to a restaurant with friends. Whenever I went over a friend's house, I literally had to lay on my stomach because I couldn't sit down. And over time, it really got to my mind, and it was really difficult to deal with, but I always try to stay optimistic and as positive as possible just to kind of get through the process, to help me get through the process, because I'm always someone that I like dealing with adversity. I like dealing with adversity, and at this time I was dealing with a lot of adversity, and I wanted to prove to people that I could get my life back, avoid surgery, and just get back to a lot of the things I love, like playing hockey, deadlifting, or squatting, which a lot of people told me I probably wouldn't be able to do again. And so I was always trying to stay positive and optimistic with the process, and eventually it paid off. And so moving on, then I decided to do my master's degree, which I kind of made a video about as explaining why I decided to do my master's degree on August 18, 2015. So many of you probably don't know this, so I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but one of the big reasons why I came back to do my master's in human kinetics at Windsor was because I had initially applied to a couple of physical therapy schools in Ontario, but I didn't get in. And even though I graduated with distinction, had over an 80 average, had good marks throughout my whole university career, I had the experience of training professional athletes, and I had a minor in psychology as well, but all that wasn't enough. And the physical therapy program here in Ontario is very competitive, and it's pretty much almost more competitive than getting into med school here, which is kind of crazy. And it just goes to show you how competitive it is. But the application process is all based on pretty much grades, and my grades, I guess at the time, weren't high enough even though they were really good. But so that was kind of part of the reason why. But the other reason, you know, I was offered a entry scholarship here to Windsor to come back, and the scholarship covered half my tuition to come back. So it was kind of a win-win if I didn't get into physical therapy school or not. I was always had the fallback of Windsor, which half my tuition was paid for, and you know, I'd be able to upgrade my education and learn more about human performance, but I'd also be able to specialize and do research and kind of do my thesis and whatnot. But I ended up, with my master's, I ended up doing an internship and thesis, which leads me to my next slide. I'm moving to Toronto September 13, 2015. And so this is when I unexpectedly landed my Toronto Raptors internship. Now this was something that was very unexpected. And just prior to kind of starting the semester, the Toronto Raptors were looking for somebody, a strength and conditioning intern specifically, to kind of work for them during that year. And this is the first time they ever offered this position. And so I kind of said, what the heck? And I just kind of put a resume in and applied. And about a month and a half went by. I didn't hear anything, so I didn't really expect to hear anything else after a month and a half. But I ended up getting an email to come up for an interview. Went to Toronto, had an interview, killed the interview. Next day, I get a call that I got the position. And I was very happy and excited for this because this was a big thing for my career. It was a big way to kind of help me with my career moving forward. And so this kind of led me to doing not only an internship now, but a thesis. My original goal in my master's was to do just my thesis, but now I was doing an internship as well. And so I did a follow-up video when I completed my internship on February 1st, 2016, just explaining what it was like working with the Raptors as the first ever strength and conditioning intern there. And so the photo on the right is just a picture of me in action at the time. It's just me. So one of my roles with Toronto was I needed to be on the court during the pregame for every game, and to help any of the athletes kind of warm up, prep for the games, or if they needed a stretch, or if I needed to put them through an activation routine. My goal, or kind of part of my responsibility, was to be there and to kind of help them through that, and to kind of help put them through maybe a stretch, or help stretch them out if they felt the muscles were tight, certain muscles were tight, or if they wanted to, you know, do a certain activation routine or whatnot. So that's just kind of a picture of me in action at the time. And then I kind of just made the video explaining my experience. And so while I was up there in Toronto, I also got a course credit for it that kind of helped with the process of my master's, because I got a course credit which counted towards my degree. So one of my 4 credits was kind of checked off from doing this internship, because I did an independent study as well up there. I did kind of a little study, just put together a little training manual. And then I came back. So I finished my internship though at the beginning of January, and I came back to Windsor to finish kind of my coursework up. So the big thing with me, they actually asked me to stay on for the season, but the problem was more of a financial issue. And the reason being is because at the time, there wasn't really much more I could get out of the internship, because I already had gotten a course credit for it in the fall semester, the previous semester. And while I would like to be up there and whatnot, living in Toronto, it's very expensive. And in order to kind of continue on with them, I needed to be registered in university. So I'd have to have paid for tuition in order to make sure my insurance was covered. But while my insurance would have been covered by paying tuition, I wasn't really getting much out of it in terms of from the university. So it wasn't really, from a financial point of view, beneficial for me. And being from Windsor, it's about a 4-hour drive to Toronto. So it made sense for me to come back and get my coursework done instead of kind of staying there and continuing to learn. At the same time, I thought I had already kind of learned as much as I could, or there wasn't really much more I could learn. And realistically, at the same time, I wasn't really getting paid much too, which is another thing to keep in mind. Just because I was getting paid as an intern would, or as any other intern would in the organization. And so when I came back, I finished another 2 course credits up. So I got 3 of my 4 courses done by the end of April. And then in May 2nd, 2016, I made a video about, do I still suffer from lower back pain today? So I made this video just to kind of clarify where I was at with my lower back issues and lower back pain. And so while I probably should have made this video at an earlier date, because realistically I was probably near recovery or pretty much at a full recovery by the time I started that internship. and I was able to bend over, no problem. I had no pain. And so in this video, I'm kind of demonstrating that where I'm seated, and I'm kind of bending over and touching my toes. And so this was an indication that, you know, I made a lot of progress and I made a recovery, because this was one activity there was nowhere near I was able to ever do that, nor did I think I'd ever be able to touch my toes again. So I made that video just to kind of address where I was at, and kind of at this point I had made a recovery. But I like to think my recovery was actually made kind of prior to that internship, around that time, that's when I really was starting to feel good. And so that led me to October 14, 2016. So this is when I started to get back to deadlifting now. And here I am doing a 225-pound conventional deadlift. So this is the first time I had deadlifted 225 pounds since prior to my injury. And in the background, I got Bill Casimir, and also during this presentation, kind of demonstration, Patrick Holloway, another power lifter, I had them coaching me on the deadlift. This was at the Swiss 2016, so Society of Weight Training and Injury Specialists. So I had Bill, who's a former World's Strongest Man and power lifter champion, and I had another very experienced power lifter in Patrick Holloway coaching me on the deadlift here during a presentation they were giving at Swiss, which was a really neat and great experience. And after this, prior to that though, in October, I also had finished my last course credit towards my master's. So now we're just on to the process of my thesis. But moving on to February 23rd, here I am doing a conventional deadlift of 315 pounds with the bar being just raised slightly to kind of decrease the distance that the bar has to travel, just because I wasn't fully comfortable yet lifting from the ground because of my levers and being 6'5". It can be pretty tough for me specifically, and I wasn't really comfortable yet. So I wanted to kind of, in order to kind of make progress, I wanted to decrease the amount of that the bar has to travel, but I wanted to progress by increasing the weight. But I wanted to do it in a safe manner where I didn't have to lift from the ground and being at any risk where maybe my lower back may round, because I was still just kind of getting back to deadlifting. So 315 here, very happy with that. But then shortly after, I got hurt playing hockey, fell into the boards, got tripped, went hard into the boards, and dealt with concussion symptoms. And I had some neck issues going on, which put me out of training for about 3 weeks. So I had a bit of a setback here in terms of my training. And so I had to kind of slowly work back into things, because I wasn't able to get back to lifting 315 right away. However, come May 20th, 2017, I ended up doing a 365-pound sumo deadlift. And the advantage here with sumo is that you're at a wider stance, so the bar is traveling less, which may make it a little bit easier. And also I feel like you can get the glutes engaged a little bit better. And so this is kind of a type of deadlift or style of deadlift that I like specifically for myself, just because I've already had previous back issues, and this kind of loads the hips a little bit more, and it may spare the back a little bit as opposed to just conventional. So this, but overall, I was very happy with the Sumo 365 here, and that led me to conventional 315 from the floor May 31st. So this was just less than a week ago, and here I am doing 315 from the floor. So this is the first time pretty much lifting this weight from the floor since prior to my lower back injury, and here I am. Great technique. I'm very happy with this, and I hit it rock solid here. So it's a solid 315, and at the same day I was feeling really good, and so I ended up hitting 375 here. And if you ever told me I was going to lift 375 after having my lower back injury, I would have told you you're a liar, and that would never happen. I would have never believed you. And here I am hitting 375 for 1 rep. Solid repetition, very happy with it. But if you would have told me after my lower back injury that I would, number one, I'd be deadlifting again, let alone deadlifting 375, yeah, not a chance. And so I was very happy to hit that. And so when it comes to working out nowadays though, keep in mind, I I'm very careful with pushing things, and I will never push things when I'm in a bad position. For instance, if I get a bad night's sleep before a workout the next day, or if I do some sort of activities prior to a workout, like I sit in a meeting for 4 hours or 3 hours, or anything that's going to cause a lot of fatigue or stress to my joints, I typically will regress or change my workout or maybe cancel it altogether. And so I'm very cautious, just because, number one, I want to keep my performance as high as possible in the gym. And if I keep my performance as high as possible, I know I'll be minimizing the risk of injury. So that's what it's kind of coming down to. And I just want to lift good, but lift safe. And I'm always extra cautious now when it comes to that, because there's no need for me to suffer another serious injury and to be in a position like that again, because I don't want to ever go through that again. But very happy with this conventional 375 pull, which was, you know, significant progress after my first initial lower back injury that occurred after the end of 2013, and here we are on May 31st, 2017, deadlifting 375. So a lot of progress, but you know, it was a long process. So now that we're here in June, where does the journey continue? Not 100%. I'm not, to be honest, not 100% sure yet, but I have about 4 to 6 months left until the completion of my master's degree. So I'm just kind of about to do my thesis proposal. So upon doing my proposal, I will then start collecting the data, and then I will have to do my thesis defense, and then I will be done. So I'll probably, in about a 4 to 6 month period, sometime in the fall, hopefully I'll be done. And then from there, I've been considering continuing my education, whether that's to go on to do a PhD or maybe kind of go and do physical therapy school, get my master's in PT, just to kind of do maybe both strength and conditioning and physical therapy, or just to kind of continue on with research. Kind of unsure right now, but it's an option. Work in pro sports. This is something that I have kind of always wanted to do, and I've worked with the professional hockey athletes, kind of with the Windsor Spitfires there and Drive Performance. But I also spent time with the Toronto Raptors, which I was fortunate enough to be there and work with them and just kind of learn from them, from their strength coach and physical therapist / director of sports performance. But I'd like to kind of maybe permanently work in the profession of pro sports for maybe 2 to 3 years, just to kind of get some more experience and just kind of be on my own and be in charge of things on my own, as opposed to kind of working as an intern. And I want to write a book, so this is something I want to do as well. Maybe in the future write a book, or maybe start writing one now, just about my experiences and lessons that I've learned over the years. So that's something I definitely want to do, and I believe I will do one day and get out. And also I want to open my own gym someday. So I want to have my own gym. This has been a goal of mine for many years, just because I would like to kind of be my own boss and be in charge of everything, because it's very hard for me to kind of work with someone that I don't agree with or have disagreements with. And I've had that over the years, and there's a lot of things that I've seen that I don't agree with, and so it makes me hard to kind of work with someone. So that's why I feel like I just need to be my own self, and I'd like to open my own gym just to kind of be in control of things and do the things that I believe in and that I believe work. And you know, the reason being for a gym is because I'm passionate about health and fitness, and I've always been. And lastly, I'd like to continue growing this YouTube channel. And you know, I love kind of just meeting new people on the internet here and chatting with people about their experiences and stories. And I hope, you know, to continue to grow this YouTube channel and try to make it as big as possible, and just to grow it as big as possible. And for that, I would like to thank you and thank everybody who supports me and supports this YouTube channel, because we just reached over 2,000 plus subscribers. And so I really appreciate everyone that supports me and has subscribed to me over the years, especially since day one, or if you've subscribed just recently or just kind of at some point. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the support. And hopefully we can continue to grow this channel and help educate people about lower back issues and lower back pain, and to help people make the right decisions when it comes to specifically with regards to training, exercise, and just performance in general. And so thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it, and I'll leave it at that. And all the best, guys. I hope you've enjoyed my journey over the years. I thank you all, and take care.